Hello again, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of emergency management. Our weekly agenda for this week will consist of you're going to have chapters 2 and 3 from Introduction to Emergency Management, 6th edition. You're going to have your PowerPoints, chapters 2 and 3. You're going to have your discussion board. You're going to have a journal exercise. You're going to have a quiz, and then as well as your critical assignment preparation. And although we kind of talked about it last week, rather, I just want to make sure that we get started and get going here in week 2. So our module objectives, by the end of this module, end of chapter 2, chapter 3, you'll be able to describe the hazard categories. And along with the hazards that are included in each of them, you're going to be able to describe the scales and systems used to measure the magnitude of hazards and disasters, as well as what is meant by terrorism. We have occurrences that happen here in the nation and across and abroad, and sometimes it's quick to throw out the word terrorism, but we need to actually know what it is. Going to list and explain the steps by which hazard risks are assessed, and I think that's actually very, very important. That's probably the most important portion of this chapter, is making sure that you understand the steps that are part of that hazard risk assessment. You're going to describe the social and economic risk factors and how they influence a community's risk profile. So somewhere where you live, there is the social and economic risk factors that are all part of, what puts your community at risk. You're going to describe the variety of mitigation tools, explain the impediments to mitigation and other associated problems. You may be able to explain how the federal government and other organizations support mitigation, and then identify different mitigation measures performed to address actual disaster risk. Moving on, you have, like I said, your reading will consist of natural and technological hazards and risk assessment, as well as the disciplines of emergency management, mitigation. And then we have your 2 PowerPoints here, and we'll go ahead and get started into chapter 2. There's 37 slides here, but we're just going to kind of get to the main portions of them. Hazard is a source of danger that may or may not lead to an emergency or disaster and is named after the emergency disaster that could be so precipitated. Then you have risk, emergency management, and then a disaster, an emergency event that exceeds the capacity of emergency services in one or more critical areas. And these seem to happen a lot more now. And in week 1, we discussed, having those relationships, building out those contacts in advance so that when that disaster does strike, you can actually employ more than one agency to assist, or another neighboring city. You have your natural hazards, floods, earthquakes, hurricanes. We're getting into hurricane season. You can see here it's basically June 1 to November 30th, but we're starting to get into, I think the first one starts with the one that's coming up, Elsa, I think might be the first hurricane that's coming through. Going to hit Florida. Next, you have the storm surges that are all part of those hurricanes. They seem to impact the lower Gulf Coast cities there. You have tornadoes, which have kind of already come through. You got wildfires, which are starting to peak here in Southern California. I know that they've got a couple of fires in the LA area that have kind of taken off over the weekend. You have mass movement hazards. Once again, landslides, lateral spreads, rock falls, avalanches. You're going to get into tsunamis. Not really a big thing here in the United States, but it's just something that we're aware of. Volcanic eruptions, winter storms. Yeah, we know we had those earlier this year with the big freeze and down in Texas, and pipes were frozen and people were freezing, and so these are all part of the winter storms and all part of emergency management. Drought out here on the West Coast. Extreme temperatures, once again, out in the West Coast. It just seems that these extreme temperatures are lasting longer than 2 or 3 days, or lasting 10 and 15 days in a row. You got coastal erosion, and then in California right there, 86% of the coastline is eroding. Thunderstorms, hail, technological hazards. I think this has kind of been seen by all the ransomware that's going on. how it's being associated with Russia, but nonetheless, that it's impacting the oil fields, and it's just anything that has to do with information technology. Any business is susceptible to a technological hazard. Structural fires, dam failure, hazardous materials incidents. The list just goes on and on and on here. So I think, and here, right here, this is where we're looking at CBRN incidents, biological weapons. Was COVID, did it come from a laboratory in Wuhan? I mean, that's being investigated now, but these are just things that, biological weapon, it's something that, who knows how it turns out, but, could that be considered a biological weapon? Chemical weapons, weapon categories, biological weapons, radiological. Like I said, the list just goes on and on and on here. I think the biggest one is just basically understanding the hazard identification process, the assessment and how it's calculated in your area, in your community. And then ultimately, this is what it always comes down to, the risk analysis. What is the likelihood that it could happen where you live, and are you vulnerable? And then the hazard risk treatment. But I actually want to get to the actual social and economic risk factors of it all. Basically, Katrina revealed the socioeconomic vulnerability divide. The social character of a population is driven by a diverse set of that includes education, culture, form, effectiveness of local government, standard interaction, values, laws, beliefs, etc., etc. When things happen, it's really up to the local government and getting people up and running again, getting businesses, having that plan, and making sure that everybody's informed, everybody knows. I mean, if you're in this business and you've seen an emergency management plan, it's a big binder, big 3-4 ring binder. It's about 6 inches thick when it used to be on paper, and it's nice and it looks pretty, and a lot of people put some time into it, but it just really more or less just looks nice up on somebody's, on the city manager's bookshelf, or the fire chief's bookshelf, or police chief's bookshelf. It's just something I can say that we have it, but it's actually the matter of practicing it and putting it into play when it happens, and how is it that we can basically recover, because that's the hardest part of everything, is that when an event happens, it's the recovery time that seems to really hinder us. So moving on, then you have your chapter 3, and these are just basically the tools and construction of applications and all the things that kind of go into preparation on the prevention side and the preparedness side. So you can actually take a look at that. Moving on, we have our discussion board. Throughout history, natural disasters have occurred, often devastating entire regions and causing thousands of casualties. And why does God permit disasters and suffering to occur? So basically, we just want to go ahead and put your thoughts out there and see why is it that you think that these atrocities seem to impact us for longer lengths of time than they seem to in the past. Then you have your journal exercise. After reviewing the week 1 and 2 material, how has your understanding of emergency management changed? What working knowledge of emergency management do you bring into this course, and what are your expectations for this course? And once again, you have your rubric for your points possible and how it's going to be graded. You're going to have a quiz, standard. You're going to go ahead and get to take it twice. And then here we go into the critical assignment preparation. Once again, it's going to be due in week 8, and the assignment must be completed to successfully pass the course. And basically, it's a 5 to 7 pages of evaluative research. Students are going to be responsible to research an emergency management disaster topic that has occurred in the United States. So if you're living outside the United States and you want to employ something outside, that's okay. Just make sure that it's a significant event that has made headlines, across the nation, because that's usually what really signifies a true emergency management disaster. It's something that triggers headlines, globally. So just make sure you have that. If you have any questions, please send that information to me, and we'll see about getting it approved for you. And then in closing, I just wanted to send out, like I said, just another short video. It basically Jay Shetty talking about what we're getting wrong in life. And I'll just, just kind of open you up with this here. Mental self-awareness. That's what I want everyone to think about this week is just staying mentally strong, staying mentally active, staying around those that, continue to bring positivity to you, help you grow, kind of give you that mental stimulus that you're looking for. And then just kind of, stay away from the detractors. It could be social media stuff, it could be news stuff, it could be someone that you're around, or that anything of those distractors that you feel that you can identify and go, oh, hey, that's stealing energy from me. Let's just kind of push those aside, those things aside, whatever it is, and let's just kind of stay positive this week, because that'll kind of fall into Mark 13:31 here. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. In one of Jay Shetty's videos, he talked about how a graveyard is the most wealthiest place on earth. In regards to that, everybody that's there is there, and the potential that those people had, and maybe they didn't get it out there. Maybe they didn't write the book. Maybe they didn't cure cancer. Maybe they didn't help someone. Those are all things that all these people had all this potential there. But you're here, and we're here, and with all the dynamics and everything that's going on in the world, it's best that we take the time to try to help someone, and beyond ourselves, because in this video here you're going to see, I think it kind of coincides with, regardless of what happens, it's making your mark on this earth while we're here and helping our neighbors. So that being said, I hope everybody is safe and has a safe and 4th of July weekend. And now that we're going to get back up and running, once again, let's just get started into week 2. And if you have any questions on any of this material, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we can work our way through whatever the problem might be. Thank you. Have a great week.